And I was cracking up when y'all put that up there. There was a guy, it was that balloon popping show, which I don't know what it's called. There was a guy who came on with a ski mask and you couldn't see his face, but he said that he makes 130,000 a month. And so none of the women pop their balloons because they're like, oh, well, let's see what's going on here. And when he took his mask off, I don't know if that had to be AI because that dude's face, Lord Jesus. I mean, I'm not making fun of. I don't want to make fun of nobody's looks, right? Because he could have had a disability, but it was interesting. What did you tell me? Tell us about that.
Okay, so all right. So on the show, right, and even outside of the show, me and the ladies have these conversations, right? All most of us are dating and navigating and have different perspectives on what that looks like. So everyone knows that I'm not what's called a looks girl. So like I don't need the prettiest looking man. And I actually prefer my men not to look too pretty. I've realized the pretty men, the femininity in them and my femininity clashes. We don't go well together. Like you can't take the same time to get ready as I take. It doesn't, the energy doesn't sync, right?
Mm.
So they did that to see, and then there's certain like Constance, for example, you gotta look good. If you don't look good, Constance not even checking for you.
Mm.
So there was an experiment to see how we would react to that, right? So if you watch the clip that you posted, they went to me first because they're like, Athena, you're not a looks girl, so this shouldn't matter to you because you're focused on the wealth. So he making 130 a year, and I was like, listen, I'm not a looks girl, but you can't look like Shrek. Like you can't, like I just can't do that.
Well,
So
he actually, I think he said 130 a month.
oh yeah, a month, yes,
Yeah,
130
which
a
is
month.
which is a lot of money, right? He makes over $1 million a year,
Mhm.
and it was interesting, right, to kind of sort of see that, right, where it's also it's tough for us when we kind of have our like we have this person that we claim to be, the person we want to be. And it's hard when we kind of like when the rubber meets the road and you're forced to really prove you are that person. Because
Mhm.
then you realize like, okay, maybe I've just been saying the right things and sounding
Mhm.
politically correct, but
Mhm.
actually there are more things that I want, or maybe I have a different balance. I'll give you an example. A lot of people may or may not know that my wife and I were friends for a long time before we decided to date each other. And years ago, when I was single, and she was dating someone else, I remember she was asking me, she was like, I got a friend I want to introduce you to. And I said, okay, that's fine. And she said, yeah, she goes to the University of Chicago with me. I was like, oh, I like smart women. And she's like, well, but she doesn't look like your exes. She's not as pretty as your ex. And I was like, that's okay. Looks aren't a big deal for me. When I tell you that she tested me, she tested that theory to the limit. I'm not gonna say nothing negative about this poor lady, but I was mad at her. I said, Alicia, I said, what the hell you think? You think I'm desperate out here? Like, why would you do that to me if you're my friend? She's like, but Boyce, you said that looks don't matter. I said, come on, like you can't do. So I think you're right, right? Like there's that kind of like what we want and what we need, and then maybe what sometimes even what we say we actually like is different from what we actually like. Like
Mhm.
like a lot of us
I
go
think
through
it's
that.
a priority thing, right? So even though looks doesn't matter, maybe the looks is like third, fourth, fifth on my list, but it's on the list still. It's
Yeah.
something that needs to be factored in. But I think people often confuse what my desires are, what my motives are, because I'm on the show, I'm very vocal about wealth and the men needing to rise up. I don't believe in
Mm,
supporting weakness in no kind of way, especially
mm,
with our Black community. And it has been known that the men need to rise up. And every time a woman takes that position, she's attacked. But I'm fine with being attacked because I'm going to stand on business, right?
mhm.
So I think people confuse that. But if you watch towards the end of the show, we had to choose between money or love, and I chose love, right? Which people were shocked by as well. So for me, I always come from the perspective of I've actually dated a lot of different rich men before, of different tax brackets, right? And I know and understand just because a man has money doesn't necessarily that's the only thing that I need to be with him. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't be here today. I'll be on a yacht sipping a drink. But I've
Mm.
turned men down because I understand character is the most important thing, regardless of how much money they make. And because I often choose based on that factor as well, I end up not dating them long term because not to say that a man who's poor won't do that, it's just that a man is a man regardless. If he's rich,
Mhm.
it just means he has extra commas in his bank account. And the dangers of some of the gender war and the level up culture and the red pill culture is putting on a narrative that if a man has money or he provides, then you're going to be okay. And if you're a woman that looks good, you're going to be okay. And as a woman who have dated those type of men, how you look while he may be attracted to you will not mean that he loves you, will not mean that he cares for you, will not mean that he even marries you. It's
Mm,
often the other things, your conversation, your emotional capacity, the ease of their relationship is what separates you from all the other pretty girls they can probably pick from. So I
yeah.
think I want to give that context because often I feel slightly vilified for taking certain financial positions. But if you are looking as a woman to marry and to have a certain lifestyle for you and your children, if you look at the economy right now, just me, a husband, and two kids,
Mm,
what kind of income do we have to have in order to support that to where we are not struggling? Because
mm,
financial difficulties account for what, over 20-30% of all divorces. So it would
mm.
be stupid of me to not factor that in choosing a partner. So I just want to give like a brief overview of why I take certain positions, because the show, we only have a certain amount of time to talk, and I just don't want people just to focus on that one aspect, and I want them to see it within a holistic view.
Interesting. So let me ask you, Athena Gardner, that's Athena's name. For those who just came in. So your parents, was your dad and your mom married to each other growing up?
Okay. Yeah, so I grew up with my dad and my stepmother like for the whole of my life, right? So those are my main parents. My dad and my stepmom have been married. I think they're celebrating 40 years next year, right? My dad has been my main consistent parent. My biological mother and I, we are estranged at this point, because I have chosen to make it that way because I just can't do it anymore and I can't support dysfunction. But as far as who raised me and who I've been raised by my dad and my stepmom my whole life, and they have been together forever. My dad, I know we had an episode about stepdads paying child support or whatever yesterday. My dad never put my mom on child support. My dad is a very masculine. For him to even take money from a woman feel weird. So I just want people to understand like the maybe why gender roles are important to me. But I was still describing him as progressive. My dad is like one of those stereotypical Jamaican men that worked very hard and had all these different jobs and like can cook, clean, build a library, build a sprinkler system. But he's a vice president of a mining company because he's a geologist. So I grew up with a man being able to provide, being able to do all the things. So and do laundry, do all these things. So even as I'm dating, because my dad was so well rounded as a man, sometimes it's even hard for me to like engage with certain kind of men because I know what your potential is. And I know a lot of the reason why the men don't reach that potential is because they're lazy and they don't want to do it, which is
Mm,
fine, but I don't have to pick you.
mm. Okay, so let me ask you this. You have an accent. Did you grow up
Yes.
in the United States or?
So I was born in Jamaica and I came here when I was very young. I came here when I was 9 years old and I went through the elementary school. So I've been living here for over 20 years now.
Interesting. And the reason I ask that is just because I have a theory, and as you know, some of my theories get me in trouble, but my my theory is that there's some real issues and challenges we have as African Americans in terms of how we process what we've gone through and who we've become as a result of that. And I find that a lot of and I hate saying it like this, whenever I meet other black people that are just sturdy and solid and et cetera, I'll always find out later on that they're from Jamaica or some other country, right? And it speaks to a hard conversation. I don't think that some of us are really ready to have
I'm ready to have it.
right about the dysfunction that's really been sort of pushed through the African American community from the Diddy stuff on down. Like even that's a reflection of, if you think about this, right? Millions of little black boys grow up looking up to that, looking up to this ridiculous, buffoonish, clownish, lazy, fast talking, don't no action bullshit behavior, excuse my French. that you saw from the Diddy's of the world, right? And
Mhm.
then you circle back and you see that that little boy never grew up with a solid man in the household to
Mhm.
even teach him the basics of manhood, but he had a real solid mama. A solid mama that would take out the trash, fix the roof, like work 3 jobs and take it right. So
Listen.
so so if I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing that, okay, so there's no standard for the man, but the women are just dun dun dun, right? Then what am I going to look for in my wife? I didn't even know until I talked to my therapist that I've actually dated my mom about 3 times in my life. And then I married my mother. My wife, literally, if my wife and my mother took a picture together, and my wife's mother said, "You look more like Boyce's mother than you look like me." Her own mother said that, right? And I said, "Oh my God, the subconscious mind is so strong." And in
Mhm.
fact, she and my mother have the same profession. I have the same profession as Alicia's dad. He's a professor, just like me, right? So people should understand how deep it goes, right? This whole broken family thing, where you've got these strong mothers raising, the boys and the girls, and so the girls, are learning from that, and the boys are learning from that, and then it creates this real confusion when it comes to dating. What should I expect? What should it look like? And it's not just a dysfunction that affects just the men or just the women. It affects everybody, right? So my little add on to the theory, not that anybody's asking for this, is that what it can do is I think it can make the men sort of feel like, okay, I don't really have any sort of specific role I'm supposed to fulfill, because my mother kind of did everything, so I can go make the babies and you'll take care of the babies, just like my mama took care of us without my daddy. You can do it too. And then also with the women, I've seen almost like this interesting, almost like this commodification of men to some extent, where you have some young girls, because they never really had a man in the house, they kind of have an expectation of what a man is supposed to do for them, whether it's something financial or he's supposed to fit a fairy tale, because they never dealt with a real man in the house
Mhm.
on a daily basis. Like they don't
Mhm.
know what it's like. Like there are little subtle things you learn by having an opposite sex parent in the house that you just can't substitute.
Mhm.
Like I could, I could even little simple things. Not that it's weird to say, but I have to say it. But like I could, if I go in the bathroom, I could tell if my mother was in there or if my father was in there, or what time of month it was. If you know what I mean. I don't want to be I
Mhm.
want to gross anybody out, but y'all get the point, right? So what it prepares you for is
Yeah.
like all these little things that women do that I would not know if I did not have my mother in the house. If I didn't have my mom in the house, I would sort of construct this whole fantasy of what a woman would be, right? It would come from
Mhm.
magazines and or whatever, maybe an adult movie or something. Maybe it might come from what my father says. Like so
Mhm.
if my father says, "Well, yeah, women are good for sex and cooking," then I'll be like, "Okay, well, you're a woman. You're supposed to cook for me and have sex with me, and that's your only job." So if you kind of and then if you have a traumatized parent that's raising you, who says things disrespectful about the opposite gender, that's going to translate down as well. So if my father would say, let's say he was really hurt by my mother and hurt by women, and all he did was he'd say negative things about my mother and about women. Oh, there's no way I could have healthy relationships with women after that point, right?
Mhm.
So I really think overall that this is stuff that just requires a lot of therapy, and because if you don't get that healing, you're going to completely you need healing and training, right?
Mhm.
Healing to sort of fix the broken stuff, and then training, like, okay, this is how you talk to a woman, this is how you talk to a man. These are things that women like and don't like, these are things that men like and don't like. I really think that goes a long way. What are your thoughts on my concocted theory?
I think it's a decent theory, but I think you're missing some parts that I might be able to fill in. So, to give perspective, I have 4 brothers. I grew up in a male dominated household. My dad was the main parent, as far as the parent that spent the most time with us. This was a man who got up 5 a.m. in the morning, went to work. My dad's a geologist, right? And it's funny, you talked about how you attract certain things. I tend to attract men who have engineer in their job title and men who are entrepreneurs. Those are the two most common men that I meet all the time. All the time. Men that are in tech or network security engineer, electrical, computer engineer. I talk to a man, I'm always surprised that it's just, I don't know. I attribute that to my dad. It's just, I don't know. We just find each other somehow, right? Plus, I think they like me because I'm smart, right? So that's something in there too. Um, okay, so I grew up in a male dominated household. So as far as like I learned how to navigate around men very early. Especially my dad. I'm used to being disciplined by a father. So, and I know how men can get angry too, or when they raise their voice, or when he's speaking because, okay, this is something that he's serious about versus, okay, this is a disrespectful kind of tone, right? If I were to grow up in a household that there was no man around, if a man even raised his voice, I might have had an issue with that, right? But sometimes it's just expressing something of great concern and not necessarily something disrespectful. So I think learning the nuance between the two is helpful. My brothers now, so my dad is a very, I'm trying to explain, like he fixed everything because in Jamaica's school system is actually very great.
Mm-hmm.
You learn the traditional sciences, but you learn how to draft, you learn how to design, you learn how to make furniture, you learn how to weld. So my dad knows how to do all of that stuff. So we never had to pay a handyman or anything. He just fixed everything. Plus, he has that scientific engineering mind, so he knows how to read plans and build stuff. Like my dad built the sprinkler system for the house, built the library in the house, right? So even when I went to Jamaica this summer, it was great because even though Jamaica is a developing nation, all the men there have skills. They can they can build a car. Like I know men who can do this. So I'm used to men that can do, right? So when I'm looking at men, it's from that certain lens.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say with my dad being that capable as a man, right? Because he was smart. So he's VP of a company. When we came here on an H-1B visa, because he got a job here, right? So we had student visas and he had H-1B. But we ain't get no check because a lot of people love to call me a tether. We ain't get no check, no handout, no nothing. Start from the bottom. All of us in one house. I was in a room with all my brothers when we came here. He took that company from making like hundreds of $1,000s to $1 million company with his skills because he used to run the mining company in Jamaica. So with that said, my dad is for me a great example of a healthy masculine man that provided for his family, put all of us through college, set up a trust for us, the house and everything. Even the hurricane coming, I was gonna go to my dad's house. Why? Because it's 2 acres. It runs off solar and gas, aluminum. We have natural gas. We have our own water system. We have our own hurricane-proof windows. It's like if anything, the end of the world happened, Walking Dead style, that's where I'm going to be, protected from all fronts, weapons, everything. So that's the type of man that's my father. So when I look at my brothers now, it's been interesting to see the path that they have taken because they have this. I think my dad has been in our whole lives, put us through school, done everything. So I'm thinking if you are a man that grows up in that environment, you're going to replicate that. They have been struggling to do that, even though that has been their example. I have one brother in particular, and it's so bad because even my dad has said this before. He never told, my dad has never said this to his face, but my dad did say he's kind of misogynistic. You can tell he's watching red pill content. You can tell a woman needs to cook his food and all of that. I couldn't do that, right? So I find that very interesting. We've had conversations to where he was like, yeah, I work all day. My girlfriend wants, she wants me to help her with this, and the third. And I asked him, I said, what do you think a relationship is? Did you not see your father come home from work all day, put his work bag down, cook us dinner because mom was working, and then had to do things? Like, that's why I'm saying, like, even if you have that extreme example of what a healthy provider, masculine man that also cook, clean, wash dishes, you can still take a path as a man to where you're not meeting that. And it's just, I feel like it's, even though the environment supports that, at the end of the day, every man has to make a decision on what kind of man he wants to be. So I have one brother who's kind of imitating my dad in that sense. He does, his girlfriend doesn't, he provides for the house. His girlfriend doesn't pay bills, shows up responsible, all these other things. I have one brother that's in the middle and one brother at the end. So it's been curious to see. If I didn't see that, knowing growing up, I would think, okay, just because you didn't have a father in the home means that, you're not going to do that. But even when you have a father that is like that, you can still decide that you don't want to do that work. You don't want to reach that. And I think also a part of that is you're afraid to take on that level of responsibility because my dad is that man. He took everything on his back. You're afraid somehow, and you don't really want to do that work. So I
Mm,
feel like at the end of the day, every man has to make that decision.
mm. Well, I think that that's true, and it's interesting. When you talk about your father, he reminds me a lot of my father, right? And in fact, what as I critique what's going on with us as African American people and African American men, I certainly am not talking about everybody, right? My father, Southern black man who could build, and he built an entire extension to our house, the plumbing, electrical, everything. I have no idea how he did it. And the thing is that the reason I don't have that skill that he has is because number one, he was so busy kind of working and doing stuff. He didn't teach me any of that, right? He never felt like it was important for me to know these things. He would just be doing it. And I was just living my life as a teenager. And then I went off to college. And the other second part of it is there was an idea that, in his mind, I want you to do better than me. And better for a lot of black people was college, corporate job, whatever, right? But my dad was the police officer who could fix everything. And it wasn't until I was about 27 years old that I actually realized that being a cop was an honorable profession, because he talked about it as if, like, oh, you become a cop if you're a loser and you can't do anything else, right? And I told him that later on. And I think that it's interesting because you did have that sort of sturdiness, I think, with a lot of the men, definitely before integration, if they were exposed to life before, affirmative action and everything else, where we all thought that the only way to be successful or maximally successful was college and the corporate job. You did have skills based outcomes for men, right? And
Mhm.
now it's sort of the trend is sort of reversing, or I think a lot of people are realizing, look at how many of our kids come out of school and they don't have any skill. They can't do anything. They can't fix anything. You want something fixed or done around the house, you got to call, you're going to call a company run by Mexicans or whatever. And it's very disheartening because we've got all this unused labor and all this unused potential in the community. And I think it is important to get back to the days where we did have the basic skills to really get things done. Now, let's talk about this too. So it seems to me, Athena, that there's no one size fits all approach when it comes to, building families and sort of understanding relationships. I almost feel like it's if you talk specifically about the financial side of a relationship, like what is a man supposed to do? What's a woman supposed to do? 50-50. Should he pay the bills, or he pay, or should he or she or whatever pay the bills? I think that the mistake people are making is that they think that there is a rule that everyone should follow. And I think that's BS. I think that the rule you follow financially in your relationship should be structured by the two people in that relationship. And that's where I think things like communication come into play. So, for example, if you were to have the 50-50 conversation with me when I was 23 years old and broke, it would have been very different. It would have been a very different conversation that you had with me when I was 45 years old and had plenty of money in the bank. When I was 45, I was single and I was dating at 45. I never once asked a woman to pay the bill because it's not a big
Hot
deal. It's like,
Calaboya, honey. Where's my tambourine? Is my tambourine around?
yeah, it's like we're, yeah, okay, or it's 112. Okay, no problem. Here's my credit card, right? But when I was 23, or actually 25, I remember in particular, I went on a date with a lady, and I could tell she was like a person that was real happy to be on a date because that meant she got free food. And I think that in her mind, she probably thought, I'll just give him some sex later to make up for the food. But I never grew up thinking that you should trade your body for like a meal. But I think in her mind, that's what she was thinking. So I think she was surprised when I didn't try to, like, because I just didn't. My brain didn't work that way. Like, wait, I bought you steak, so I'm supposed to, like, I can get you pregnant now? Like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense to me, right? So anyway, I remember we went out and she ordered I could see her deliberately order the most expensive stuff on the menu. She didn't, how the drinks are always real expensive. She didn't get one drink, she got two drinks. She got the steak and the lobster.
Listen, you were
And it was like,
sweating. You were sweating on that a la carte menu, honey.
the
This is
bill,
at
yeah, the
market
bill
price.
had me like, man, I'm looking at my bank account trying to see if I got enough to cover this debt. Calling my credit card company. Am I gonna get, my card rejected? And we got done, and I'll never forget after it was over with, and I barely made it through the date. I was like, oh my God, this was terrible. And she like tells one of her friends, she's like, yeah, I had a great time on my date with Boyce. I can't wait to go out with him again. And I was thinking, I ain't never going out with you ever again. Like, I can't afford this. So that conversation, I think, varies depending on the stage of your life that you're at, also who's having it, right? The dynamics between the two, right? So So maybe at that time, if I'd been dating a woman that was more financially secure, and she says, "Hey, let me cover a few things because I know where you are, but I see your potential. I see you. I respect you. But right now, I'm a little bit ahead of you financially. I think it's okay for me to say, okay, thank you. Like, and I know we'll make it even later on, or maybe if I'm the one that's ahead, or if you're just in, So I don't think people understand that relationships are specific, and if you go in with these sort of clear, hard, fast, one size fits all rules, you're probably going to do it wrong. What do you think?
I agree, and I think that when it comes to finances and money and all of that, that conversations need to be had, especially in the dating process. But what I also think that people need to think about, whether you're a man or a woman, is what does it need to be for you, right? What does it need to be for you first? And then when you are dating and meeting people and having these conversations, then you can really pick and choose and maneuver in ways that are agreeable to you. So for example, and I'm gonna talk about this because I want to debunk some things, because I was like, maybe I need to start a Level Up channel because these people out here lying about what the reality is, right? So I've dated men that had at least $1 million net worth or above, right? You would think that because they have it like that oh, they would just lavish you with gifts and pay all your bills and all of that. All of them are not like that. And I would say, in fact, most of them are not that generous. And I had to learn throughout dating was that generosity was more of a character trait than like a
Hmm,
financial ability or status.
interesting.
So that was one thing I like to debunk with women. They're thinking, oh, because no, no,
Hmm.
the girls are lying on that one. It's on a man by man basis. When it comes to, if you are a 50-50 girl, or if you are, I need a full provider girl, when you are actually getting to know a man, or having these conversations, you should discuss that. I've been in dating situation where a man asked me, do you think a man should pay? Right? Like, text message asked me, do you think a man should pay? And I responded, yes, and all the reasons why. And we were in agreement. I've been dating situations where the man was like, okay, I will only pay half of your bills. Right. I mean,
Hmm.
and he ain't here no more, but I'm just saying, like, he was going to pay. And this is like us not even living together. This is like, I find that men bring up these conversations when they're ready to at least make you a girlfriend. And
Hmm.
mind you, these are men who had it, right? So if a man didn't have it, maybe the conversations would be different. But even, I'm trying to even say to the women, even when they do have it, he wasn't trying to pay my bills. He was trying to pay half, right? So
Hmm.
don't make the assumption that even if they have it or not, that you're going to get it.
Hmm.
Other women are putting up with
Hmm.
to get it. Because even when I saw Cassie and Diddy's situation, I said, thank the Lord I had common sense, honey. I had
Hmm.
common sense, because, maybe we can do this on another Fly Nubian episode. You can invite me back, Dr. Boyce. There have been situations where men have offered me their black card, have offered me a girlfriend package. You can have a house card, all kind of things, right? Some of them I met at your conference, actually, but I'm not going to put any of your friends on Front Street.
I mean, weak men do not come to our conference. The men that tend to come to the All White National Convention are quality dudes. So yeah,
Right, right, right.
because I think weak men get scared away. Like, when solid men are talking. Like, I want to be a solid man. My father is solid, and so
Mhm.
if you're weak, I'm going to say something, and so I offend a lot of guys because of that. And I think that, but to your point though, it's interesting you mentioned that a man's wealth level is not going to determine what he does with his money. I mean, if you think about this, think about it like this: he a man who has a solid amount of wealth, who's doing well financially, he didn't get there by being stupid. He got there by working hard and being thoughtful about his actions and strategic to some extent. So strategy does not mean that you don't share your resources. My wife could go in my bank account and take every penny out if she wanted to. She can have it all. She has full access. But I didn't treat everybody that way. You
Mhm.
know,
And I'm
if
sure you definitely vetted her for that, in order for her to get
absolutely.
that treatment.
Yes.
Because what I want women to understand is most of these men are not dumb. So when you listen to these women talking about all you gotta do is throw a wig on and makeup and look cute and get snatched, you're trying to manipulate really, really smart men, because normally they had to either be really smart to get there or be able to afford other smart people to tell them what to do.
Hmm.
And men with that kind of mindset, to have amassed that amount of wealth or success in their life, look at everything like an investment. So as a woman, you are also looked at as an investment.
Mm.
Are you the type of woman that he can trust you if he were to pass away right now? Would you trick off all the money, or would you be able to invest and enhance his legacy? Are you going to be the one to take all the money and, okay, I'm going to buy Chanel bags, or I'm going to take some of this money and create a foundation in my husband's name? Are
Mm.
you the type of woman who, okay, I want to take the money to go on brunch and make my other girlfriends jealous? Or, all right, honey, let us have a dinner party and invite the mayor and invite other key people in our community to help you get to know them and establish networks that can eventually lead to money. So I think people often underestimate, and a lot of women don't really understand that value, and a lot of women don't understand social capital. And that's also a part of the reason why I created my wealth community for women, is for us to understand these higher level things, especially as Black women, because who's teaching us this, right? You're thinking, oh, I'm just having this dinner party to look cute, and there's a certain reason people navigate certain levels of society in a way, because these relationships translate to dollars down the line. So these rich men, when they're having conversation with you, and you're another pretty girl, you're just another pretty girl. But when they start talking, as I'm probably, assuming right now as we're having these conversations, people are realizing that, okay, this girl is different. I might be able to invest in her or see something long term with her, because she's going to enhance my wealth, my business, and my bank account.
Yeah, you said it very well. I think that it's interesting because I have seen wealthy people, um, so let's talk about what you said earlier about just because a person has it doesn't mean they're going to share it, right? And we talked about that more of a strategic defensive kind of gesture, like, hey, I'm not just going to throw my money around to any pretty face, right? But then also what's interesting is I've seen it used in a manipulative way where you have to be very careful because I remember I'll give you just a really clear example of this. The rapper Too Short a long time ago in a song he basically talked about how he would manipulate gold diggers. He said, you come up to me because you think you're going to get all my money because I'm a rapper. So then I just say, okay, well, have sex with me. And then I don't give you anything. Right. That's a very dangerous life strategy, right? You shouldn't be sleeping with everybody, but, rappers, right? But still, though, it just it's kind of it's almost something I might call the Epstein strategy, where Jeffrey Epstein did the same thing, where everybody wants to be friends with the rich guy. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants to get close to the wealthy, powerful person. And there are
Mm-hmm.
people who know this and they're like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna give you any of my money, but I'm gonna get a lot out of you, whatever it is that person may want, because you
Mm-hmm.
think you might get a piece of this, right? Like I literally know one
And that's
guy
the trick.
yeah, I know a guy that comes to mind who is close. He's close to being a billionaire. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I laughed to my friend. I said, do you ever notice that he loves to wave around how much money he has and go and get invited into certain spaces, but he never gives anybody, he never writes a check to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I said, I've been knowing this guy for a while. He's never written a check to anything that I've done. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna treat him any different from my regular friends. Like show me that you're actually, we're doing something. So I think that there's like this whole perception of
Mm-hmm.
wealth that can come where and Diddy, I think Diddy did that as well, right? Like so you think about how many millions of people fantasized about the chance to meet Diddy, right? People
Mm-hmm.
going into the music industry. If you told them Diddy's on the phone, they'd be like, ah! Right? You got invited to a Diddy party, right? So you're getting the chance to be up close with this person who's got all this wealth and all this power, and you don't even realize, like you think that you're the predator, he's the prey, and he's looking at you in the exact opposite way, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
making a deal with the devil where he's thinking,
Mm-hmm.
here, drink this, right? Right. Next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're in a lawsuit because something terrible happened to you at the Diddy party. And I think that this is where we have to be really careful about how money can kind of distort our thinking.
It's not
And
just
so
money, it's also character. Because I've been around women Thank God I had common sense. I just know myself and I know what I'm willing to sign up for and what I'm not willing to sign up for, right? So when I've been offered the girlfriend package or whatever the case may be, I always turned it down. And I used one of my brothers used to be like, if I were you, I would just date a rich man. And my comment was like, you've never dated one, so you wouldn't know, right?
Mm,
I'm not about to go through no kind of suffering, no kind of manipulation, no kind of a lot of them have what I call humiliation kinks that they want you to do.
mm,
A lot of these girls go through emotional and mental and financial manipulation. Actually, we're talking about financial deception at Fly Nubian Money today, and I'm on that panel. A lot of the girls go through, I could have been easily in a Cassie situation if I didn't have common sense and if I was only motivated by money, and probably if I didn't have a good father, and I needed to pay my bills. A lot of those girls, NBA player, I always stay away from athletes. I've dated a former NFL player and a boxer. That was very short lived because I was like, I can't do that. It's like your command, like they expect you to do, and I was like, that's not the type of energy I operate on. Um, they, you can easily end up in a Cassie or any other situation where a woman is being abused, but you sign. Part of it is the men know, right? Most of the men, when I turned them down, they were shocked because women, I gotta put us out on Front Street. These men know that we will all kind of morality and all of that stuff go out the window
mhm,
once the money comes through, right?
mhm.
So you can talk about all this other stuff. They know once that black card is on the table, 95% of women are jumping, right?
Yep.
But I always, maybe because I'm also a spiritual person, I was like, I can't be in situations where I know, or maybe because I have a big ego too, I can't be in situations where I know that you are putting me, oppressing me, or putting me in situations where you want me to take out the trash or you want me to do all these different type of, you're grooming me to end up doing all these humiliation things that are eventually going to go to freak offs. Because I can bet you one thing, Diddy ain't start off with the freak off right away. He started off with small things to test and see how gullible you were, and that ends up down the road. And I've seen this happen, and I've seen girls think that, oh, they have arrived only after from 2 to 7 years because he picked you because you look good. He gonna shuffle
Mm,
you out for a new chick, and
mm.
you're left maybe a baby mama, maybe a child support with a weekly therapy and depression medication to cope with the things that you have endured. And I was like, I can't do that. Like I can't have anybody jeopardize my personhood.
I think that's so smart, Athena, because when I wrote my book Financial Lovemaking years ago, I remember exploring just, the crazy things we do in relationships in order to get money and what causes that, right? I think, this is why, I think it's very important to talk to our girls about financial security so you don't have to make decisions out of desperation and have people that do have a couple of dollars in their pocket feel like they can manipulate you or control or harm you, because you need the money, right? And because I remember when I was doing interviews for that book, I would talk to some women, I remember speaking particularly to a couple of women who'd married like athletes. And not to say all athletes fit this category. They don't all fit the category, but there is a culture. There's a culture that, I'd say if I was a woman, which in dating men, which I never dated a man, um, I would be very nervous about dating some of these guys because they've been literally spoiled by society. They've been spoiled. I mean, you don't want to ever be in a relationship with a person who never hears the word no, right? Who literally believes the world is his oyster and has never had anyone sort of establish strict moral boundaries around.
I've dated them. I said they give commands. Like they don't
Yeah.
ask you. They tell you that they want to do this and you better do it or else they're going to psych you for somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, like that's just not that's like you're asking for your own living hell in my opinion because real relationships require a lot of compromise and give and take, push and pull, you got to kind of have two people that really want to make it work. And if one
Mhm.
person's like, "Well, if you don't do what I say, I'm out." What kind of relationship is that? That's not a relationship.
But Dr. Boyce, that's what a lot of those women on
Mm,
these basketball wives, how come? All right, this is a thing, right? And this is what I discuss in my community. And I would love to discuss this with you again, Dr. Boyce. If you are a woman who have high standards, right? Quote unquote high value, quote unquote, you get the pick of the man, quote unquote, everybody, how come we don't see rings? All
Mm,
these basketball wives, all these women are baby mamas.
yeah,
And they
they are.
cycle
Right.
through, they go through. If you look, all right, Evelyn Lozada, Drea, you look at all these women, they cycle down, right? They cycle down with the men that's within that same community.
Mm,
But no one's getting wifed
mm,
because he's not looking at you as an investment. He's looking at you as something for right now. And a
mm,
lot of those women that live those even if they are wives, they get divorced after what, a few years? You get cycled out,
mhm.
right? Because unless you're doing with a Steph Curry or a LeBron, and even sometimes I side eye them because I'm like, okay, I don't really know that for real. They could have some really good NDAs running around, right? I probably do, which is smart. So the women of that lifestyle, right? Or if your goal is always wealth, you will fall trapped to that desire because the men are gonna dangle it, and I've experienced they're gonna dangle it and play this game with you. So
Mm,
to be honest with you, most of the men who I've dated that do have that, I never knew they had money at all. They weren't flashy. They live in a regular house. They drive a regular car.
mm,
Regular. We just had good conversation. Money was never my goal. I just noticed I just tend to attract them after the fact. Like I dated a guy for a whole year. I did not know that he was even on the level that he was, right? And I think a lot of the men are getting smarter because they understand that there's a lot of gold digging women. I remember going on a date with a guy. He was like I called him Mr. Google because he was I actually met him at your conference, Boyce, in Charlotte. We went on a date and he was responsible. So the Pixel phone, he leads the team for that. He leads the global team for that. So he's high up at Google. And I remember going on, and this was a theory I had. I was like, a lot of these girls getting dressed up, ordering all the expensive food, like you said, Boyce, thinking that you're trying to make this mean something. You're trying to make the amount of money he spends as your value. But
mm,
if you put that on yourself as a woman, then that is your value. So
mm,
this 100, are you worth $150? He spent $150 and now your drawers is on the floor. Are you
mm,
worth the ring and the investment and like Boy said, access to the account? Like you decide, don't make the meal what it is. I remember sitting with him, he said, you know what? And he was dating women. He looked at dating women as charity. Like I'm just taking somebody out to eat and the money
wow.
I spend is like charity. Because to be honest, if you're on that level, then that's a drop in the bucket. But you as a woman now across from him, he would tell me a lot of you can tell the ones who are like care about the show, like they're in Housewives, like they're just trying to do something, right? And you're immediately placed in this category of like, okay, I'm not going to take her seriously because she's only here to take pictures on Instagram or whatever, whatever. But I'm trying to let the woman, especially the woman watching this, know, understand that you thinking you're doing something and you flossing and you looking cute or whatever, and these men are looking at you like charity. Like the money they spend on
Mm,
his day is charity.
mm,
So you really need to. That's why I was even talking the other day. I was like, you know what? Go on these drink dates. Go on these coffee dates now. Because what I also realize out here is a lot of men rely on the show, rely on that fancy restaurant, rely on that ambiance. And when it's just you and them, they can't hold a conversation. They're socially awkward. They don't have anything to talk about except for sexual things. Strip
mm,
it down so you understand the type of man that you're dealing with and pick on character first because there's no point on chasing the wealth. And I know a lot of us have these money wounds in our community because we grew up in financial situations, but there's no, if you are with a man that has money, but he is morally corrupt and does not have character, it's a moot point because in the end, you're going to just come out of that other side of that emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even maybe even financially damaged, and you're back on the dating market or whatever again, or you may not even recover.
mm,
Because what a lot of these men are getting smart too. Like you're thinking, oh, I'm just gonna have a baby and I'm gonna get this guaranteed check for 18 years. Look at Ludacris. Ludacris got full custody of his kid. They can argue that they're more financially sound and have a better environment than you. So you as a woman do not play that game. And most women are not even smart enough or intelligent enough or even know Wagwan to even play that game. Because I'm sure I'm blowing some minds right now having this conversation.
Mm. Well, I'm glad you're having it. I think it's an important conversation to have, and I think it's interesting. I mean, I think with money, it's one of those things where you said something earlier where you were talking about regular men who just kind of do regular stuff and live in a regular house, and I think that might be, but yet they're financially secure, and
That's
I
what I like too. I don't want the pressure. Like
mm,
I really don't want the pressure of, and this has been a thing that I've kind of like had to navigate around. Sometimes the men approach me because they want a trophy, right? They want to, my ex fiance I told you about the pastor, right? He was like, he said he used to love the fact I can take you to the cookout, I can take you to the gala or whatever. And as a wife role, that is part of social capital. That is part of, I think, the job, because being a wife is work,
mm,
is part of that job. However, you don't want him to only be interested in you for how you look or for the ego that he gets from parading you around, because that's a weak emotional attachment. And you want a man to feel like you're his confidant, feel like he has what most of these men are looking for, to be honest with you, is a level of understanding and emotional safety. Men do not operate in a world where they feel safe. When they grew up in their family environments, work, even their past relationships, I could always tell when a man has had a relationship where he could not be honest with his feelings with another woman, because it takes him so long to feel emotionally to trust you. Because the biggest issue is they tell you something that may not be the best, you judge them, and then when you're mad on mad day, you bring it up and use it against them, and then he'll never trust you after that. So what a lot of these men are looking for is actually a level of emotional intimacy and safety that he's probably never experienced in his life.
that would be true. That is quite accurate, and I do agree with that. I think yeah, and I think that just I think that these conversations about how relationships work and families work, because they're supposed to be related, right? You meet somebody, it's not, you're not hooking up with them just because they're cute. You have a longer term goal, right? And I almost feel like we need formal training on that. We talked about that the other day. I said, what black people will go to school 4 or 5 years for a job, right? But we don't spend any time learning how to run a family, how to build a community, how to stay healthy mentally and physically, or any of the things that actually matter in our lives. It's all about that job, and we do a damn good job at our jobs. We're very dedicated, very consistent, very loyal. But when it comes to other areas of our lives, like what's happening with our families, what's happening with our personal lives, our wealth, et cetera, that stuff ends up falling apart. And then we're like, well, what happened? Right. And it's because you maybe didn't take the approach or take the time to become well-rounded enough to sort of master the game of life, right? So I like that. So thank you for sharing your perspective in life school today. And by the way, her name is Athena Gardner. Her platform is We Women Wealth. Is that like We Women
We
Wealth?
wealth women.
Yeah.
We wealth women. I know it's
Oh my
okay.
God!
Dr. Boyce, I was looking at the chat and everyone's like, "Are you posting this on YouTube?" I love what Athena's saying. This is much needed conversation, and because I also patron a Black business school, I do think that there is a need for women to learn this aspect, this financial aspect of just relationships, whether you're dating or married, because you talked about something about being trained.
Hmm.
All this information I've learned, I've been trained on either through my personal experience or through my council of, I call my council of women who are like 50, like most of my, like half of my female friends are like 50, 60, like up there, that have
Mm.
like personally trained me, because like I said, I'm estranged from my biological mom. And then my stepmom didn't really have to, my dad took care of everything. So she didn't really have to learn the stuff that I had to learn this way, right? So I do think there is a area potentially on the Black Business School, where we need to have something where women can get kind of financial training as it relates to relationships and dating, especially with as it relates to how to date these high value men, or what things we need to consider as far as having social capital and how that translates into wealth as a woman within relationship. Because what I do know and understand is I'm like, damn, I probably could do the best level up channel, because none of the women are teaching this. And I think also what I always say is most women teach presentation, right?
Mm.
Most women teach you how to look good because it's the easiest thing to teach and it's the easiest thing to learn. You can always go to Sephora and have them beat your face and get your hair done, right? The mental, spiritual, emotional aspects, the things that I'm talking about, how to remain safety. A lot of these women watching these YouTube channels, I watch some of the advice. Now, I do love Shira, and I agree with 70% what she says, actually. But the
Wait,
danger is
who is that?
Shira 7.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Miss Sprinkle Sprinkle. You can go up.
Oh, okay.
But the danger of her advice is that if you don't know, you're not part of that life. If you don't know that, you're gonna put yourself in situations where you could be trafficked,
Mm,
where a man can financially abuse you, a man can erase you off earth. You trying to manipulate men that have money,
mm,
that if you come and ruin his life, you know what I'm saying? There's certain, it's very dangerous to a lot of women. Very, very dangerous. Or you're going to expose yourself to disease. You're going to expose yourself to all kind of nonsense because they're not framing the other things. Because like the stuff I'm telling you is going to drive people away, and they need those clicks. But the stuff I'm telling you is going to position yourself for greatness as a woman, because you will be properly trained in not only the art of having conversation and navigating men and feeling embodying more than anything. They're trying to teach cheap tricks and strategy. And what I stand on is more embodiment of that goddess within you, and embodiment and where a man will love and respect you versus looking at you as like fodder and entertainment.
hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Wow. Well, that calls for more conversations. So we gotta do this. And also, just so you know, We Wealth Women, right? Is it first of all, is it wewealthwomen.com? Is that your
Yes,
website?
yes.
Okay.
And that's a social handle as well.
Okay, and also on Instagram, We Wealth Women, and
Mhm.
I tag Athena on some of the commentary also that.
Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, it's all the same handle. So you can always find me there.
All right, perfect. And also, we have the honor of having Athena join us. Well, I'm not there, but the ladies talk on Fly Nubian Money every single day at 1 p.m. Eastern. And so if you want to be notified when the Queens go live, just text the word Queens to the number 87948. Text Queens to 87948. They have some really interesting conversations. I watch now because because I mean, it's crazy. Like I don't even know like what topics you guys are going to cover on a given day, but like the other day, y'all were just having so much fun and really hitting on things that I thought were important. Like the day you had the guy who made that comment about how he was glad his son died. And
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell? At first when he came in there, I said, oh man, this is not gonna go good,
You're gonna be
because
with
he was
Cheddar,
fighting with
honey.
Constance. Yeah, but what I loved was eventually there was like almost like this understanding that you all had achieved where it's like he's gonna be him, y'all gonna be you, and you were learning from each other. And he actually had a breakthrough where he actually admitted that he made that crazy, horrible comment because he was grieving. And he did a really good job of expressing the fact that a lot of black men can't be honest about our feelings. And I said, wow, I love that. And it was a great combination because I remember you were there. I think was he calling you blue shirt or was that
No,
Constance?
that was Constance.
Yeah,
Constance was his
yeah,
boo.
yeah,
Constance was his
yeah,
boo.
yeah. So there was you and
Because
Constance.
I clocked him. I was like, he's the type of man, he like that back and forth. He like that spice. He like that
Yeah,
argument.
yeah. And then Dr. Alicia was in there being a therapist, and she's like,
I
Constance was
love how
like,
she
"How
handled
dare you
him.
say that?" Right? And Alicia's
Yes.
like, "So tell me what made you feel that way?" And I was like, "Oh, this is great." So yeah, I think, I really love what you all are doing because I just really think there's so much we can learn from women and also seeing the diversity of Black women, right? That you have, you have all different kinds, other than the ones that we just see on TV. And it's great. So anyway, anybody who wants to watch, every day they go live, literally Monday through Friday. They work really hard on the show. So if you text the word Queens to 87948, male and female, I think the men can learn a lot from watching the ladies. I know I do. Just
Mhm.
text Queens to 87948, and we'll send you a notification when they go live. And also, Athena is going to be at the All Black National Convention, and this is
Yes.
cool. Now, tell me what are you talking about at the convention?
Okay, so I know I look good, but the girl has a brain. So my topic is going to be the AI edge, how to create a thriving Black-owned business in 30 days. So for what most people don't understand, or those of who are still here, I'm a CPA. I have my master's in accounting and finance. Yeah, my undergrad and my master's in accounting and finance, and I also have a certification in AI and business specialization by UPenn. So what I promote is that you do not need to be a tech genius, even though I date them. You do not need to be a tech genius to utilize AI tools to your advantage, right? Because last year I did my AI presentation on how we can use that to better position ourselves for a Black economic perspective. This year, I feel like now we need to get to the nitty gritty. How can we use these AI tools to create these businesses? Because I know one of the tenets of the Black Business School is economic empowerment, entrepreneurship. So I felt like that session would have been great for A, B, and C because we are going to walk through how to create a business strategy from idea to concept to launch in my workshop. So if you are someone who is interested in learning how to use AI in order to create a economically viable business for yourself, then you need to come to the conference this year and personally see my session. Okay. So, and that is going to be because I know my company is We Wealth Women. That's for the men and the women. Now, the woman, you guys show up here today. You could join my community, and I can keep giving you these gems. But for the conference, I think that this is something that's definitely needed in our community. We need to not be afraid of AI. Yes, it is snatching jobs left and right, even though it's supposedly supposed to add a net 12 million.
Mm,
I think that number is propaganda. I
mm,
think like what you posted about Klarna, what is happening is that these companies they're not having like, oh, we're just laying off people, which some of them are. What they're doing is reduction in force, meaning that they're not hiring any new people and they're
mm,
slowly weeding out
mhm.
their who is not essential in certain roles like marketing, customer service, things like that. So we're going to discuss that within my presentation as well. But it is kind of like a sneaky way. They're not, a lot of those companies don't want that smoke.
Yeah.
So they're doing it. It's like a quiet firing or
Yep.
quiet layoff situation that's happening, which is why a lot of people are having a hard time finding jobs.
Yeah, yeah. I think Amazon has I think they added 750,000 robots to their workforce, and they were claiming, "Oh, we're not laying anybody off, because of AI." And the experts have actually said that I think for every like one robot that they hire, they they lay off three people or something. So they are definitely eliminating people. And someone was asking about Elon Musk and what he did yesterday, and I think that it's all part of the trend, right? So I think AI is critical. It's not going away. I think it's important to kind of keep on top of that. And so thank you, Athena. First of all, for your great, excellent commentary today. I really enjoyed it. Everybody, give her a digital round of applause in the chat.
Yeah.
Just shout out this Black woman, let her know how amazing she is. And also, she will be at the All Black National Convention, with I think we have about 60 experts that are coming in, and
I know
just
we're
amazing
booked
people.
this year. I was like, this is my fourth year. I was like, oh my God, we're booked up.
Yeah, jam packed. I mean, I had so many great people reaching out, and I was like, we don't have any more space, because we have so many awesome people right here in our community that can solve our problems. So if you want to be part of it's like a big university family reunion slash business conference slash festival, but it's not thousands and thousands of people. It's not impersonal. It's very personal. Everybody there, you'll get to meet them. There are some people who meet business partners, best friends, play cousins, husbands and wives have met there. So come to the convention. It's going to be in Lombard, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, October 25th to the 27th. The URL is allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. Also, we wealthwomen.com is Athena's site, and that's where she is on all social media platforms. Also, if you, I'm going to take a clip of this, I'll put it on my Instagram, which is Dr. Boyce Finance. I'll tag Athena as well, so you can also find her there too. So, thank you, Athena.
And
Oh,
oh, sorry
please.
to interrupt,
Oh, that's
but
okay.
I wanted to say that also in regard to Amazon. So you know how they have that 5 day back to work mandate, right? A lot of
Mm,
companies are trying to do that because basically they're going to have the excuse, well, you didn't want to come back to work, so we eliminated your job. So that's
mm,
also a way of like, or having not even just eliminate the job, having the people quit to find other remote work so they don't have to eliminate your job. They don't have to
mm,
cough up any money towards unemployment or anything like that. So these are all these different strategies these companies are using. So you better come take this
mhm.
AI work, my workshop specifically. I know I'm being selfish. This AI
That's okay.
workshop and so we can discuss strategies to position you for success. And also, I'm very personable. Every time I go to All Black National Convention, it's the fourth time around. I know some people watch me from afar. I'm like, is she going to be nice? I am very nice. Do not be intimidated. Come up and say hi if you decide to come.
Yes, she's a very nice person, and I don't like working with assholes anyway. So if she were a jerk, she wouldn't be here. So yes, she is a great person, very personable, and you were an attendee at the convention. Like did you? How did you first end up at the convention? Did you come as an attendee, or did you come as a speaker
Oh
the
my
first
God.
time?
I remember my first one was the one in Orlando during the pandemic. That was the first
Yeah,
one I went to.
2021.
And I remember sitting in Al Duncan's session, great speakers. And I said, one
Yes.
day I'm going to speak at this thing. I remember saying
Wow.
that. And I've been to everyone since then. I've been to Charlotte, I've been to Atlanta, and this one in Chicago. So starting from the last one in Atlanta, my third one, that's when I got my first. You guys selected me for that one. And then this is the second year in a row. So I've just been so grateful. But I found out, I've been following you, Dr. Boyce, as a very conscientious Black person. You just kind of notice certain YouTube channels. You kind of like run into certain groups. When I started my spiritual journey, because I think I told you I was married. I wasn't married. I was engaged to a pastor, and I kind of had to leave because I wanted, especially as a Black immigrant to the United States, I wanted to understand Black history. And the question came up was, how come we don't understand Black history before slavery? Like slavery seems to be the starting point for all of us moving
Mm,
forward. So that's I started studying Kemetic science. I went to Egypt. I did all of that stuff.
wow.
All of the greats, Francis Cress Welsing, John Henry Clark, all of those people. And just being in that ecosphere, that's how I somehow landed onto you and Dr. Boyce and of course I'm in finance. So and then one year you had, oh, we're doing A, B, and C, and something told me just go. And it was in Orlando. I live in Florida. So I was like, oh, I can just drive up to this and go. And then from the first one I was sold and I've been ever since then.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. I enjoyed hearing that story. I'd never heard that before. I know we do our best but it's nice to know, when someone's affected by it. Because I remember I'd never run a conference before when we put it together in 2015. I literally went to sleep and had a dream and I called Lene Javette and I was like, I think we should have a conference and it should be different from all this other crap out here. Let's call it the All Black National Convention. Like that's how it came to me. Like it was like the universe downloaded the idea and gave me the name, and I said I know the name. It's there, right? And we did it, and now we're here, and it's so cool to go there because I feel love. Like I think love is like the best word to express because the energy is super positive and Rizza Islam. I remember Rizza being there and Rizza had like this army of like hundreds of people like
Yeah.
following behind him to
I
the
love the Nation of Islam, man, when they pop up, honey, with the security, honey. I feel secure. They always have their suits on. They be checking, but
Yeah, I mean, just yeah. Again, solid. That's it. Like
mm-hmm.
solid people are gonna build our community. You're right. Nation of Islam, full of solid people. solid women like yourself. Like that's how we're nation building up in this mug. And because
Mhm.
we ain't gonna let nobody come up in here and wiggle us around.
Okay.
We here to
Let's
make it happen. So
stand on
uh
business, honey.
that's right. We standing on business. All right. Well,
Mhm.
well, God bless you, Athena. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And she'll be on Fly New Being Money later on today, right? Like,
Yes, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're talking
yeah.
about financial deception. So if you want my thoughts
Uh-oh.
on that,
That's gonna be good.
yes.
Yeah. So don't forget, if you want to be notified, just text the word Queens to 87948. Also, wewealthwomen.com. That's Athena's handle on all social media. So God bless you guys. Have a great day. Thank you again, Athena.
All
And
right.
we
Thank
will see you
you.
all soon. See you all tomorrow morning as well. Take care.